staff to be sure to spotlight the ASL interpreters, and thank you very much, Victoria, for sharing the slide deck. We're going to call this meeting to order now. It is 6:31 on October 6th, 2022, and this is a public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission. If the Spanish language interpreters, Talia and Gabriela, can please give the information on Spanish language interpretation now, that would be very helpful.
Muy buenos días o muy buenas tardes a todos. Hoy día es 6 de octubre y vamos a empezar con la Comisión de Rendición de Cuentas de la Policía. Esta reunión va a ser grabada y vamos a tener interpretación disponible.
Thank you so much. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Mary and Maggie. Please pin their video feed to see their interpretation throughout the meeting. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance, but please note that this is an automatic captioning service and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to Police Accountability at portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and the Oregon State Law, and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. Please access this feature. Just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. I want to let you know that Victoria, Lara, and I are your facilitators this evening. Co-chairs.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moses, and thank you, Victoria. And yeah, thank you to also our interpreters. Hi, everyone. I'm Louisa Lloyd. I use she and her pronouns. I'm a co-chair of the commission, this fact-finding phase. All right. Although the city has asked for a moratorium on land acknowledgements, the co-chairs have received a request from a PAC member that some form of land acknowledgement continue. We would like to recognize the limits of any land acknowledgement and the harm that can be done by an inadequate or disrespectful land acknowledgement. We are working to find a respectful way to continue to center Indigenous voices, and we'd like to take just one quick moment of silence, please.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Louisa. I would like for us to review our community agreements. Please take a moment to review these silently. And I'll ask then Victoria to go to the next slide in just a couple of moments.
So sorry that I interrupt you guys, but I cannot start the interpretation yet because I'm not being assigned for the interpreter channel.
Yeah, we don't have the interpretation set up on our end because it didn't set it up immediately after Dalia introduced or said that there's interpretation today.
I see the interpretation icon at the bottom of my screen now. And I believe it has been resolved. So I think we're all set. Thank you for bringing your voice into the room. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. May I have a thumbs up or some sort of indication that you agree with these community agreements? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And Dr. Christine, oh yeah, no, my mistake. I thought somebody had a question. No.
Right, no, they're using their hand up for agreement, so yes. All right, I would like to pass it over to the co-chairs to discuss our timeline, please.
All right. Hi again, everyone. Thank you so much for your stamina and your patience. I know it's been a long phase of work, but we are getting closer to the end now, and we're going to get a lot done today. All right. So as you can see here, the Commission is currently in the fact-finding phase of work, which will end when all 3 of the outcome documents are approved. It includes hearing from key stakeholders, identifying barriers to accountability in Portland presently, and examining systems of accountability from other jurisdictions. It also includes increased community engagement work. Future phases of work will develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before the Commission presents that to the City Council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. Following today's meeting, the next 2 meetings are the final meetings of the Subcommittee on Research, which is next Thursday, October 13th, and the next full Commission meeting, which is the next Monday, October 17th. There is no meeting next Monday, October 10th, which is Indigenous Peoples Day. So next Monday off. This slide is the current project plan for the fact-finding phase of the PAC's work. It's not their agendas, and it is updated regularly. This slide is for members of the public to be able to understand how the Commission gets from now through the end of the phase, which focuses on identifying areas of agreement among Commission members as to barriers to accountability in the current system, best practices from Portland and other jurisdictions, and suggestions to consider from experts, as well as taking public comment and meeting with key stakeholders. Today's meeting is the blue box with the purple border in the upper right part of the screen. This slide shows the outcome documents for the fact-finding phase. The first one is being developed at the Subcommittee on Research and will be referred to the full Commission by that subcommittee. Second document was referred by the Subcommittee on Research to the full Commission last Monday and will be discussed today. The final document was approved by the Commission last Thursday, and we do have a couple of items on that we will circle back around on today. All right. Today's meeting agenda has 2 primary purposes, the 2 documents that we just mentioned. First, we will discuss the draft areas of agreement on proposals to consider or to avoid from subject matter experts. This document was referred to the Commission by the Subcommittee on Research 10 days ago and circulated to the membership. Members were asked to give any proposed changes via email, and those have been collected into a draft document in track changes format for the Commission to go through today and finalize text. It is likely that the PAC will be asked to make a formal decision on this document today, so hopefully we can get to a place of consensus today. Second, we will discuss the draft areas of agreement on barriers to police accountability and best practices in Portland. This document was approved by the full commission last Thursday. Part of that approval included asking co-chairs to update a few small parts of the document, which co-chairs have done, and will propose as a small update to the document, just a couple discrete items for a quick decision today. There will also be time for public comment during today's meeting, as well as time for some more of the transition tasks for the phases of work transition. Thank you. And that said, I'm not quite sure if I pass it back over to the facilitators or to the co-chairs of the subcommittee.
Yep, nope, to me. Sorry, I'm speaking, of course, and I'm muted. So I continue to mute myself. So we will now move into a discussion of the draft areas of agreement on proposals to consider and to avoid from subject matter experts. It is possible, but not guaranteed, that today co-chairs will ask if there's consensus on approving the document. Prior to that, though, there will be an opportunity to work through the text and propose changes received via email. And we're going to go section by section. And so, would the subcommittee chairs like to describe the draft and frame the discussion? We'll start discussing this document in a moment.
Yes, thank you so much. I just like to say that the Subcommittee on Research has done a really great job on trying to find subject matter experts. We have walked through the document and come to a consensus on the items that you have here in front of you. We will go through these, as she says, one by one. And I will have the facilitators facilitate the discussion as we go through the items for agreement. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So the purpose of this document is to assess proposals made by subject matter experts, including the people and organizations the subcommittee researched, as well as the briefers to the full commission for proposals that they made. It doesn't cover anything currently happening in Portland, as that was in the document that we just discussed. And it doesn't cover anything other jurisdictions are doing, because that's going to be covered in another document the subcommittee will forward next week. Finally, it doesn't include suggestions from individual commission members, as that will be discussed soon in the next phases of work when that starts. This document is designed to have a point of view. Proposals that the commission wants to consider and proposals that the commission wants to avoid are also listed here. The document doesn't include proposals the subcommittee had no opinion on, but those can be brought up back up later at a later time when we're actually developing recommendations in future phases. Are there any other comments by the full commission chairs?
Sure, I'll make a comment. When we get into it, there is a suggestion from the full commission co-chairs to remove like a certain type of language that shows up a couple times in this document, which is some charter notes language, and we can talk about that when we get to it. But essentially, the long and short of it is that we have not had a briefing from the charter authors yet, and we will have that briefing in a few weeks, and we'll have a much better understanding of the charter itself at that time. But as I said, we can talk about it as we get into the document.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa. Would you like us to go through, would you like me to read the bolded text, or would you like to read the bolded text as we move through this document? Your choice.
I'm happy to do it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Faith.
So similar to the document that we reviewed last week, we are going to be agreeing on the bolded text, and a framing is we are agreeing that subject matter experts have identified these areas as best practices. So I want to make it clear that we are not determining ourselves what best practices are. So I will go through and we'll do similarly to what we did last week, is I'll ask if there's any strong objections to the bolded text and then ask for consensus. We're not going to read out loud the rest of the text until we get to places where there's edits. If I'm moving too quickly or you have a question, please interrupt. So we are in the section structure. A1, the oversight body should have the ability to proactively provide structural oversight, not solely react to misconduct by individual officers. Is there any strong opposition to what the research subcommittee has identified by subject matter experts here? Are we in general consensus? I'm going to try to make these questions shorter because that's a really long question for me to ask. So I've asked it once the long way. Okay, cool. Consensus. Great. Thanks. Sophia, I'm assuming your hand's up is an agree. Come off mute if it's a comment. Okay, cool. Okay, let's move. A2. The oversight body should be independent of the police department. Any strong opposition? Are we in agreement? Consensus that this is the thing. Okay, cool. Thanks, y'all. And then, Lavisa, will you restate your explanation of the exclusion of this language?
Sure. Okay, so just to give everyone some context, so this is best practices and practices to avoid from subject matter experts. That is what this document is, and that is theoretically the scope of this document. And this text, this is already included in Portland City Charter Community Police Oversight Board, is sort of like, it sort of notes about these subject matter expertise, these subject matter experts' ideas about best practices. And essentially the argument for removing them is it's not a merit judgment at all about the language. It's more just recognizing that we haven't had this briefing yet from the charter authors. We will have that briefing soon, and it's possible that we don't fully understand or will not fully understand what all the implications of the charter language now are, and that we'll have a much better understanding later on. So I guess I'm not saying that these things are incorrect, but I'm also not totally confident that they are all correct. And then there's another issue, which is that we say these things for some items, we don't say them about others. That sort of implies other things are not in the charter, even if perhaps they actually could be implied to be in the charter. I just feel like we don't really know quite enough yet about the charter language, and it's outside the scope of the document and what the document is about. I will also say we also didn't write this language into the other two outcome documents. And so in terms of standardization, it's kind of a deviation from our current practices.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa, Commissioner Monica.
Hi, Monica. Sorry, I'm late. I was making dinner. Just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I think that the people that wrote the charter were really looking at NACL's recommendations and made a point to put as many as they could into the charter. And when you read the charter, it's not that black and white. It's pretty straightforward that they were specifically saying that the oversight body that should be created will be independent from the police department. You know what I mean? So it's just written in the document already. So I think it strengthens the charter itself to have this document reflect the things that are already in there, right, from the subject matter experts that recommend those. We could also just leave them out for now and then add them in, because a lot of things they couldn't add into the charter because our system didn't allow them. And so, yeah, that's my thought.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Commissioner Dan.
Yes, Dan Handelman, he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the commission. I want to second what Commissioner Arce just said. We had a discussion about this at the subcommittee, and the idea is that people reading this document might look at it and say, well, why are you recommending these things that are already in the charter? It's sort of something that you don't have to, as a commission, you don't have to decide because it's already in there. So we're trying to just acknowledge that we did read the charter, and these things are in there, and that we recognize that they are reflected in the charter. And if there's, you know, a little mistake here and there, I don't think that's as important as making it clear that we're not making recommendations about something that's already happening, which I think we're just sort of affirming, I think as Commissioner Arce said, affirming that the people who wrote the charter did a good job reflecting these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Thanks, Commissioner Monica and Commissioner Dan. So I want to just check in with you, like maybe with a head nod, that this is your like strong opposition to deleting these items. Are you both strongly opposed to deleting these items with your comments?
Commissioner Monica.
I'm not strongly opposed. I think if most people want to leave them out, that is fine. I think this is still a strong document. I just think that leaving them in makes it a stronger document. That's all. I wouldn't really like hold anybody up from doing it.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I really don't like this kind of dichotomy we're put in about are you strongly opposed or not. We, as a subcommittee of 7 people, forward this to you, the whole commission, with this language in it. And so for me, I think that's a strong statement that we'd like the rest of the commission to adopt the language that we propose. I mean, I would rather say, is anybody strongly opposed to leaving it in? Because I think we put it to you with that language in, and the decision was made outside the subcommittee to take it out. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan and Monica. Staff, can you help me understand, will you remind me, when we are voting, are we voting on, when we get to the conversation of consensus, are we asking for consensus on the recommendation from the comment, or are we asking for consensus on the original draft?
So before moving on from each section, as you did with A1, it would be consensus to move on. Essentially, are we good with it as it is? There's no changes. When there's a proposed change like this, it would be, is there any strong opposition to removing it? Because there is a proposal to remove it. And then there would also need to be general agreement to removing it if there's absence of strong opposition. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make one clarification. The agreement in the subcommittee was to submit this for the full commission. As the full commission would be allowed to review this and decide. So the agreement was to submit it to the full commission, not necessarily to agree with it, but to agree to allow the full commission to review it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Fate. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lovisa.
Sure, I just wanted to clarify, technically, like, this document is not, it's not recommendations, and it's not our recommendations. It's, I think, if I'm correct, this is agreeing on the fact that these are the best practices suggested by experts, like experts suggested these things as best practices. So this isn't our recommendations, I believe.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lovisa. Staff?
Yeah, just to kind of add a little bit of more detail to what Co-Chair Lovisa just said, which is all correct, but a little more detail. It basically, the proposals are the bolded section. And this is as Co-Chair Lovisa said, a proposal from the NACOL and then some supporting information about it. And what the PAC would be agreeing to, if you choose to approve any particular section or the whole document, is that this proposal is worth considering for implementation. It's a way of saying that you like it. It's not a way of saying that it is part of the recommendation. The PAC will make one large scale package of recommendations at the end of this process to the city council. But this is a way of essentially giving a point of view on it and on these things. So it is, as co-chairs described, an accurate description of the proposal. But the act of including it into this particular section, the fact that it is under this header and not under the proposals to avoid, is a statement by the PAC of your point of view on it.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Lovisa.
Sure, so I think that means we don't really have to get out ahead of the question like, well, why are you recommending things that are already in the charter? Because we're not recommending these things. These are the things an expert has recommended. That makes sense.
So I know that I just asked this question, Samir, and I'm sorry, I already forgot the answer. When we're asking for consensus on this, are we asking for consensus on the recommendation to remove?
Yeah, you'd be asking for strong opposition to the removal of the text, followed by general agreement to the removal of the text.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
And if there was a little bit of clarity, we had a similar situation on Monday where there was something that was proposed for removal several times, and it wasn't, there's a little bit of ambiguity about whether or not the decision being made was about removing this one or removing all of them. So could you clarify when you ask if you're asking for removing all 7 of these references, just so that the members know whether it's all 7 or just one?
Thank you. Okay, let's ask for just one first and get a temperature check on the room. So I'm asking if there's strong opposition to remove this item.
I do not see any.
Okay, and then consensus. So if you are good with removing this item, please give a thumbs up or spirit fingers. And I remember we have some abstention folks.
I note that Commissioner Dan, Commissioner Debbie, and Commissioner Monica are standing aside by motioning this way.
Sophia and Jason, I'm assuming you're
agreeing.
Yep. Okay. Okay, it looks like we have consensus to remove one. I'm gonna just see if I can do a full meal deal right now for ease. Since we have consensus on one, is there strong opposition to remove the other 6?
I do not see opposition to removing the other 6.
Can we get a show of hands if you're good with removing the other 6?
I see Commissioner Dan, Commissioner Debbie, and Commissioner Monica standing aside.
Okay, consensus. It looks like we have to remove the other 6. Thanks, y'all, and thanks for your patience as we still work through all these consensus items and how to do it. So appreciate y'all. Okay, let's move to A3. The oversight body should be the final decision-making authority on disciplinary matters, adjudicating use of force, recruiting practices, and policy development. Strong opposition? General consensus on inclusion. Great.
Yep.
Thank you. A4, the oversight body should be individualized to the local jurisdiction with a structure and rules meeting their unique needs. Is there opposition to including this?
I do not see any.
Is there general consensus?
I see general consensus.
Okay, thanks y'all. And thanks for that update, staff. So we have 24 items. I think we've made it through 4. So cruising. Okay, reporting. So B1, the oversight body should present annual reports to City Council each year. Strong opposition?
I do not see
Consensus?
any. Yes. Yep.
B2, the statistical definition of sustain rate in oversight agency reports should be sustained complaints out of all complaints received, not just those investigated. Sorry, strong opposition?
I don't see-
Consensus? Great, thank you. C, access to information. C1, the oversight body should have direct access to police files. Strong opposition? Consensus? Thank you. C2, the oversight body should be able to compel testimony from police officers as a condition of continued employment. Strong opposition? Consensus? Thank you. Getting a little phalanges work out tonight. Next section, D, staff and budget. D1, the oversight body should have support from paid staff across the range of duties the oversight body is expected to perform. Opposition? Consensus? Thanks, y'all. D2, the oversight body should have permanent guarantees of sufficient funding. Strong opposition? Consensus?
Catherine, Eric. Just making sure. Okay, thank you.
D3, the oversight agency should include as a preference in staff recruitment that candidates have experience working with community. Opposition? Consensus? Thank you. Thank you, staff, for doing this. Okay, E, continual improvement. E1, the oversight system should be able to be improved by city council or independently over time. Strong opposition. Consensus. Thank you. F, findings and standards of review. F1, use the standard 4 options for findings after investigations for clarity and allow the additional, I'm sorry, I really botched that, and allow the addition of other findings for systemic solutions. Use the standard 4 options for findings after investigations for clarity and allow the addition of other findings for systemic solutions. Strong opposition. Consensus. Thank you. F2, the oversight body should use the preponderance of the evidence standard, not the reasonable person standard. Opposition. Consensus. Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner
Co-Chair
Dan.
Faith, I wanted to just let everybody know there's a further discussion of what this standard means in the longer document you're going to get, the other jurisdictions document. So if you have trouble understanding that, be aware that the explanation will come in the next document.
Thanks, Commissioner Handelman. And I know we put this in the barriers that we heard from city experts from CRC. So I like that it's going to be in all 3. F2, the oversight body should use, oh, I'm sorry, G1, thank you, mediation. Mediation should be offered in more minor cases, but not in more serious cases. Strong opposition. Consensus. Okay, thank you. Or jurisdiction and case authority, H1. Some categories of cases should be defined for automatic investigation by the oversight body. Strong opposition. Consensus. Thank you. I, transparency and public access. I1, all meetings and reports should be public and all operations should be transparent. Strong opposition.
Commissioner Faith, I am so sorry. I saw Commissioner Dan's hand up and just wanted to make sure that I go back to that. I apologize for being distracted for a second. Commissioner Dan.
Oh, well, recognizing that we have removed those comments from these various things, I didn't think about this until we just saw the previous one. I wonder if maybe the co-chairs could just say, this is one of the ones where we removed that item, and that way it's in the record where they were. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
So we removed a version of this is already included in the city charter in section H, board jurisdiction and case authority. I'm sorry, I've already forgot where we are. Okay, no, we're on I. Thank you. I1, all meetings and reports should be public and all operations should be transparent. And again, we've removed the city charter language from this section. Is there strong opposition to this? Is there consensus? Thank you.
Very good, yes. And 1 second, Commissioner Faith. Staff, are you spotlighting Maggie now? Is that? Are we
Yeah,
on the-
that
Okay, thank
there's
you.
a spotlight there, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. J, oversight body membership selection. J1, oversight body selection criteria should reflect those most affected by policing. And again, this is an area where we removed the city charter language. Is there strong opposition? Is there consensus? Thank you. This is a new section, proposals for city, state, and federal consideration. Am I doing this section too?
Yes,
Okay, thanks. Eliminate qualified immunity for police officers. Sorry, go ahead, staff.
Two quick comments, just to read into the record. The other three places where the charter reference were removed was in A3, in C1, and in C2. And then the other point was for this, there was a comment that was submitted, but it wasn't a proposed textual change. So we didn't have the ability to implement it, but I wanted to allow for the member who made that comment to be recognized. So if Dr. Moses, you want to do that.
yes, thank you so very much. Commissioner Monica.
Yeah, I just want to also highlight that this section right here, we are recognizing that there isn't really much we can do in the local level about these barriers to accountability, but that we identify them as something that causes barriers to accountability throughout.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Monica. Any other context? Thank you very much. Commissioner Faith?
I have no short-term memory. Did we do consensus?
We did not yet.
Okay, thank you. Is there strong opposition to for eliminate qualified immunity for police officers?
We
Is
don't-
there consensus? Thank you. Number 2, eliminate absolute immunity for prosecutors. Strong opposition. Consensus.
Yep. You see consensus.
Thank you. Number 3, change police employer liability. Opposition. Consensus. Thank you. Eliminate civil asset forfeiture. Opposition. Consensus. Thank you. Number 5, sue federal officers for constitutional violations. Opposition. Consensus. Oh, CMOB, do you have your hand up, or are you giving consensus? Okay, thanks. Okay, and in our final section, proposals to avoid, and there's one. Number one, the community oversight agency should limit community involvement where it interferes with the ability to get work done. Sorry, I want to read that again. The community oversight agency should limit community involvement where it interferes with the ability to get work done. Is there strong opposition? Consensus? Dr. Moses, I think that we've made it through the document.
Yes, we have. And I believe that we now are going to ask for consensus on the entire document.
Oh, great call, Dan. Thank you. Public comment.
Yes. So I would like to ask for public comment on this document. And then we will review the values and goals to ensure that there is connection between them. So I invite the community to raise their hand and ask for public comment. I don't see any public comment. And so I would like to ask for our values and goals.
Yes, thank you. Just a moment.
Mhm.
So the Police Accountability Commission approved its values and goals on March 24th. As part of approving that, it agreed that if there were any future discussions or substantive votes of the commission, that they would be that all substantive decisions in the future would be weighed against the values and goals. So a little bit unusual for this because it is an assessment more than a recommendation, but this is a substantive vote. So the PAC values and goals, I'll just briefly run through it and then open it up. PAC values and goals, there are 6 values, which you can see down here: equity, inclusion, anti-racism, harm reduction, transparency and trustworthiness, community-centered, and effectiveness. And then there's a table, which I'll show on screen briefly for each of these pages, which has the corresponding goals for each value, and then considerations and success criteria to evaluate the eventual recommendations of the full commission against. So just quickly show this screen, then there's another page just below this. It's actually 2 other pages below this. And then moving to the next page. And finally, the last page. So just kind of ends right there. If there's any part of this that people would like to be shown on screen for longer, please feel free to ask. Thank you. I'll pass it back to Dr. Moses.
Thank you so much, staff. Would any of the members of the commission like to revisit any portion of this document that we have just agreed on? Is there any strong opposition to approving the draft areas of agreement with all the changes we've made today incorporated into the text? As the Police Accountability Commission areas of agreement on proposals to consider or to avoid from subject matter experts. Is there general agreement around approving the document? I need to see my gallery. I see that we have general agreement on this document. Yay. Congratulations. Let's take a break for 7 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dan.
Oh, thank you. So, we're done approving it and everything, but as we were going through it, I thought we were going to go back to these. There were introductory paragraphs on the whole document and on the part about the things we have no control over, which I called above our pay grade section. I think that Commissioner Arce articulated what was the header for that one, but I just want to take another look at the header for this whole document for a minute. If we could just look at that and read it into the record, I'd much appreciate it.
Beautiful. I'd like to hand this back over to the co-chairs. I have moved us too quickly. I apologize.
Thanks, Christine. No apology necessary. I think we're excited. So I want to make sure I understand your request, Commissioner Handelman. What would you like me to read out loud?
A1.
A1.
The proposals to consider right there.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Proposals to consider the Police Accountability Commission having evaluated proposals given to the commission or the city from experts and academics agrees that the following items are proposals worth considering for implementation in Portland. Thanks, y'all. How long of a break do we have now, Christine?
Let's go until 7:30, so 7 minutes. Thank you so much. I'd like to pass it to staff for a moment, please.
Yes, thank you. So next on the agenda, there's some next steps interspersed throughout the agenda today. One of those items is the conversation around co-chairs selection for the full commission for the powers and duties phase. Under the bylaws, co-chairs serve for a period of a phase of work. Sorry, I'll get the spotlight figured out here. And there are 3 co-chairs for the full commission at a time. Faith, Lavisa, and CMOB have been serving in this role since the beginning of the fact-finding phase. I believe they were selected on April 26th, if I recall correctly, and have been serving throughout that phase, but there will be a separate conversation around the co-chairs for the fact-finding, or sorry, the powers and duties phase of work, which is the next phase of work. At this time, there are 2 candidates who have indicated that they are interested in serving at this time. So in discussion with the current commission co-chairs about how to approach this, the request is for members to please consider whether or not they'd be interested in serving as a co-chair, and that decision will ultimately be made, on who that third person might be on October 17th, which is the next full commission meeting after today. If it might be helpful to do, I know we have a long agenda, so we can keep this quick and just a sort of presentation, but it might be helpful to quickly talk about what might be appealing and what might be interesting about being a co-chair, if that's something that any of the current co-chairs or the former co-chairs who are on this call might want to do. Before we move on, I just wanted to give a quick update on that before passing it over to them.
Thank you so much, staff.
It is a very appealing position. You should consider it. Truly, it's been a pleasure. I'm very excited for it to be over, but it has been a pleasure. And having 3 co-chairs has been really wonderful in that oftentimes it can just be 2 and you don't feel like you're leaving your co-chair, your fellow co-chair hanging. So it has lent itself to some flexibility. If I've been able to miss a meeting, or Louisa or CMOB, et cetera, even in addition of planning meetings, if one of the 3 of us can't be there, it doesn't feel like a big deal. two people can be making decisions. So I would invite that a third person considers. If you have an inkling and you're like, I'm not sure, I would welcome you to email CMOB Lavisa or I would be happy to talk to you about it. I know that Co-Chair Lavisa mentioned last time it is a really big time commitment. And I do think that the next phase of work will not be as long. So you have that going for you, is you will not be appointed for 6 months like we have. So that's another pro. So please consider it. I don't know, Lavisa.
Sure, I'll just, yeah. Faith said it really well. It's not always the easiest job, but you have backup. The three co-chairs idea was like one of the best ideas I think that this commission has had. It means that each person is able to serve according to their capacity that day or week or month, and that helps a lot with just balancing out the amount of work. And as they said, we have 2 candidates right now, and we're looking for a third. So if you think that you could be that third, but you're a little worried about capacity, like, maybe check in and see, because you might be exactly the right person. It has been such an amazing way to have like a much deeper and more meaningful connection to the work of the commission and to see all the different levels that it operates on. Yeah, and I think that if you are looking for any type of like boot camp in leadership or project management or anything along those lines, that this is a great glimpse into the world of like how a really big project comes together. So, and I honestly think that anyone on this commission would make an excellent co-chair. So, and I think I really, really hope that I get to see like every single one of you kind of in the position of co-chair at some point these 18 months. So, all right, that's it. I'll hand it back.
Thank you
y'all.
so very
Thanks.
much.
And just to close the door on that, please feel free to reach out to, I guess we can recognize Commissioner Dan if you have a question first.
Yeah, I did have a question. I sent an email mentioning that most of the groups that I'm either in or that I've observed will say the names of the nominees into the record, and I'm wondering if there's some reason we aren't reading the names of the 2 people already volunteered into the record.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and actually where I was about to go with it. So there's members who volunteered, and there will be obviously a need for at least one more. So at that point, since the decision will be made on the 17th, that's definitely something that'll be circulated ahead of time before that meeting where the decision's actually made, so that is in the record. It wasn't circulated in advance of this because the decision isn't being made today. And then with relation to what to do if you are interested and need more information, the current co-chairs cover that really well. Please email staff if you want to be considered so that we can circulate those names exactly in the way that was just suggested as well. And I will, yeah, that's all I had. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Moses to go to the next agenda item.
Beautiful. Thank you, staff. We're going to go ahead into updates to draft areas of agreement on barriers to police accountability and best practices in Portland. We'll now move into discussion of the co-chair's proposed updates to this document. Later in this agenda item, we will ask if there is consensus on approving this document. Prior to that, though, there will be an opportunity to discuss the text. Would the co-chairs like to describe the update and frame the discussion? And we'll start the discussion in a moment.
Sure, I'm happy to cover this. Thank you so much, Faith, for taking the last document. All right, so I think, as most of you know, last week the PAC approved this document. This is our barriers and best practices in Portland in the current system document. And as part of that approval, co-chairs were asked to take a look at updating some of the text. We've proposed a short update to the document based on member input from that meeting, and also from between the meeting and today. This document is designed to have a point of view. Proposals that the commission wants to consider and proposals that the commission wants to avoid are listed here. Okay. So I think that we actually pretty much only have the one change that we need to look at in terms of discussing and getting consensus on, and it's there was a suggestion to include a little more language in the intro paragraph, and also a list of all of the experts and just, you know, our local jurisdiction experts who came in and talked to us. So we included that language in that list, and you'll see it here. It's pretty long. It's a long list. Thank you, staff. And we also included some text indicating that these presentations were required by City Council, and indicating the resolution numbers requiring that. So if everyone could just take a look at the text.
I'm going to unmute and say Commissioner Dan.
Thank you. I'm not seeing the U.S. Department of Justice listed there. Is there a reason for that?
That is a really good point, Dan. I think that that was just an oversight, and I think that we can add that.
Just a quick note, thank you, Commissioner Debbie. The language that you suggested is what we included. So that language is from Commissioner Iona. And thank you for that. And I'm sorry, it was on my plate to send to everyone, and I have brain fog today, so apologies, and thanks y'all for your understanding.
No
Thank you.
apologies needed.
Thank you so much, Faith, and thank you so much, Commissioner Iona. It was really, really great text. So I think if we just scroll back up, maybe take a look again at just the top part of this, everyone can kind of take a look at it. This red text is the new text. Do we have any comments on this text or any strong opposition to this text? Thanks. All right, scrolling down. Any strong opposition on this added text?
Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, I don't have strong opposition. I would like to, again, to just read into the record, if you could, the part after the required by City Council resolutions part. That's the intro. That's the new intro to this document to contextualize it for people who are watching and in the audience.
Oh, sure. Sure, it says the following document summarizes the Commission's reflections on what it heard, the conclusions it drew, and also includes members' own observations and ideas. Any strong opposition on that text? Do we have consensus around adding this text to this document?
I see consensus. Commissioner Faith, Commissioner Obi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that concludes this document. Staff, am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hooray, that's 2 documents done out of 3 documents we need to get done. Great job, everyone.
I did want to ask if co-chairs could speak to the other item that was discussed last week on that.
Sure. Oh, yes, thank you. There was one additional item that was mentioned by Commissioner Ajay that related to bias training for police. And I think that they had made a comment along the lines of what type of training is it, and should we put into the document, you know, whether that training is effective or not effective. And I think that their comment, we went back and reviewed the transcript, and we went back and reviewed the video, and went back and reviewed the comments. And I think that ultimately their comment was they were making a comment on, it didn't necessarily relate to accountability per se. It was more like, I think the comment was something along the lines of getting this training or not getting this training relates to their ability to be effective police officers. And once we went back and looked at it, we were like, okay, effective versus accountable. I think effectiveness, and this was the co-chair's feeling, effectiveness is a bit outside of the scope of this document, which is primarily about accountability, not necessarily just the accountability system, but accountability generally. And so whether cops are able to be more effective or not, that's a little bit outside the scope. So we did appreciate the comment. We think it's a good comment. We just don't think that it fits here into this particular document. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right, okay, that said, I think that that really is everything on this document. So hooray for that.
Thank you so much for the context, Commissioner Lavisa, and congratulations, everyone. So I believe bylaw, I believe a public comment on this, but I think we did it last time. But I want to make sure whether or not we should have public comment on this. Any guidance?
Can't hurt. Before a final approval on the revised areas of agreement on best barriers and best practices, you're saying? Dr.
Yes,
Moses?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, very good. I would like us to invite in public comment on this document. And the public have 2 minutes, each person who would like to participate in public comment on this document. If there are any participants, please raise your hand that want to give public comment. I do not see any. I do not see any people who want to participate in public comment. And we should, again, review the values to go with this. Review the values document.
Just a moment.
Thank you so much. Ensuring that this document walks with the values and the goals of the commission. This is the second time we've seen this document. Thank you so much. Next slide, beautiful. Thank you so much, staff. And I just want to reiterate that we saw consensus and that this document is approved. Jazz hands, consensus. Thank you so much. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, next steps. Prior to this meeting, members of the commission were asked to submit in writing if there were any proposed changes to the PAC bylaws, PAC internal processes, or PAC community engagement framework. No proposed changes were received to the community engagement framework. One proposal was received to change the PAC bylaws. I will now pass it to the co-chairs to explain this proposal.
I'm happy to do this one. All right, I think we received one proposed change to the bylaws, and by the rules of the bylaws themselves, there is a question that we have to ask before we make any changes to the bylaws. This is super fun, bureaucratic stuff, and it's under adoption and amendment of bylaws, 11B, when necessary to conduct the business of the commission may decide to amend or repeal these bylaws using the modified consensus decision-making process that we usually use. And so the first part of that sentence says, when necessary to conduct the business of the commission. So I think first we'll turn it over to Dr. Moses to ask that question. Oh, actually, wait, I guess we probably need to know what the proposed change is. But that is the question that we have to keep in mind about this proposal looking at it. Sorry, it's a little confusing. And the proposal is under removal, and it would be proposed to changes. Oh, sorry, actually not changes, addition, proposed additional text. And I will read the text, and then maybe I'll just ask the member who proposed it if they would like to speak about it briefly. All right, and the proposed additional text is, regardless of whether absences are excused or not, and whether or not a commissioner has announced a leave of absence or not, failure to attend any PAC meeting for over 3 consecutive months will result in an automatic recommendation to City Council for removal and replacement of a PAC member. And if the member who suggested this would like to speak briefly to it and why it is necessary to conduct the business of the commission.
Yeah, sure. This is Commissioner Handelman, and I proposed this, and I feel like there's 20 people on this commission, and that when we have any commissioner who's not here for more than a 3-month period out of an 18-month proposed timeline that City Council gave us, that really makes it hard for us to do our work, because it means, you know, that person's work has to be spread out around the other 19 of us. So I think that we actually are in this situation right now, and I think it'd be good to have this as a bylaw, and so that we can maybe find an active person to fill that seat. I hope that it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Okay, and can I also kick it to staff to ask the question of how applicable, what is the applicability, I guess, of this potential rule? How would this impact us?
It's a little hard to answer that without being detailed about individual people, so I'll try to
in general, as an anonymous, yes.
But if a person were to take a leave of absence for the maximum allowed under the current rules, which says 3 consecutive months is the maximum amount of time under the bylaws at present, then they could come back immediately and this would not apply. But if they had hypothetically missed the meeting immediately before that, with or without notice, or if they missed the meeting immediately after that, with or without notice, this would it would result in an automatic recommendation for removal and replacement. So it would theoretically apply to people that take leave of absences if hypothetically they had given advance notice of a meeting and then after that took a leave of absence for the full 3 months. But yeah, I don't know, without going into detail on an individual basis, how applicable it would be to the current crop of 20 people. But if there's a specific question on that, I can try to answer that without disclosing anyone's confidence.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just to review, the current rule, or like the only rule that we have about removing a member for absences is number 1 under this section. The commission will recommend to City Council the removal and replacement of any member who is absent from a scheduled public meeting on 3 or more occasions without prior notice given to co-chairs and staff. So 3 absences without notice, and there is language later on about unforeseen circumstances, so that if you are absent, it's unforeseen, and then you write into co-chairs or staff afterwards and you say, hey, I was in an accident, my dog died, whatever it was, right? And those can be kind of struck from your record. So that's our current metric, is 3 unexcused absences. And just to note, those absences right now can happen like anytime over the course of the 18 months, which is a little weird because it's like you could have missed something in December and something in June and then miss something next, February, and I guess be required to be removed. So it is a little bit, I can't say that it makes complete sense right now because we don't have a clock that restarts or anything like that. Sorry, staff.
Yeah, just to clarify that count, the 3 or more occasions count, and really all of this started when the bylaws were adopted, which was March 31st. So that's the first meeting. There were absences before that were not counted in this way.
Thank you. That's a good point. And also, I believe that also this language would not be retroactive. Like if we adopted this language under Part 2 today, it would not be retroactive. It would be like starting today if somebody missed three consecutive months.
That's how we've been interpreting the bylaws implementation timeline to date. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think I understand now. Yeah.
Commissioner Luisa, I'm wondering if this is does this problem, which this proposal aims to solve, prevent the commission from conducting its business? So taking it down to B.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a bit awkward because we don't say who determines when it's necessary to conduct the business of the commission. Yeah, I would love to hear others' thoughts on this.
Faith, and then Commissioner Debbie.
I can go after.
Okay, then Commissioner Sophia, and then Commissioner Debbie, and then Commissioner Faith.
I think Commissioner Debbie was first, but
That's okay, Commissioner Sophia. Go ahead.
so it's okay if you want me to go ahead.
Yeah.
I have a couple thought processes here, just of the things that's been previously mentioned. Currently, I don't see any problems with people having leave of absences affecting the work of our commission. That's the first thought. The second thought, if someone's missed 3 months plus 3 days or 3 meetings, it's going to take a month to hire someone. So now that's 4 months. They're going to take at least another month or 2 to catch up. So that's 5 months out of 18, which wouldn't make any sense when someone can come back and start working again. So I think it defeats the purpose in that sense. The other item, we didn't think about, the 3 excused absences for the 18th or 16-month period, whatever it might be. And I know there's no clock, but thinking of that, I think it's restrictive as it is already, and no one knows what's going to happen in their life. And I think we need to be sensitive
to folks who have things that come up in their life and be accommodating. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Debbie.
So as far as preventing or whatever, having an impact on our ability to do our business, for one thing, if we had everybody, if we had more people who were actively engaged, it would mean less work for individuals. I mean, and I speaking from experience from the research subcommittee, we did a ton of work. If there'd been, a couple more of us who were actually, had the time to, cover a couple more of a couple of the jurisdictions, then maybe some people would only have to do, say 3 as opposed to 4. So it's easier to share the work when you have more people who are actively involved. There's also, the possibility that having fewer people actively involved would, give us a quorum problem. And then the other thing I think about is people who really just don't have the time to work on this. What is 120 people applied to be on this commission, and we're denying them the opportunity to help. And so, so that's kind of another reason that's a little bit unrelated to that, what you brought up, Dr. Moses, but I'll just thought I'd throw that out there while it's my turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Faith.
I guess I wanted to check in on a process question. Maybe Lavisa, I'm asking you this question as the co-chair of the bylaws subcommittee. Do we have to, is the process that we're agreeing that this is an interference, and then based on that, we are agreeing on the new proposal, or are the two interlinked? Do you understand my question?
I do understand your question. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, I think if it is necessary, that sort of is the binary, yes, no, can we move forward to doing something about it? Sorry, staff or Commissioner Handelman.
Dan?
Well, I think that two are intertwined, and we should, whenever we're considering the question, we should say we need to add this because it allows us to do our work. But I'm just going to say on the record, I mean, there's a person who has not been at a meeting for 6 months, more than 6 months at this point, I think. And that is really, as Commissioner Iona said, not fair to the other people who might be sitting in that seat or to the rest of us doing the work. And so my proposal, given the interpretation that staff gave about how we interpret the bylaws, would be to also add a clause in here that says this is retroactive from the time that it is implemented, so that we can fill that seat with somebody who's going to do something as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Commissioner Catherine.
Thank you. Catherine McDowell, she, her pronouns. I guess my concern about this is that we are allowing people 3 months leave of absence, and then to me, it's a little bit to then also have the period of absence that automatically disqualifies you be 3 months. Feels like we're undermining what we were trying to do in the leave of absence section. So I'm wondering if we could, get at the issue that Commissioner Dan was talking about by making that 4 months. So we're really saying, if you need a leave of absence, we support that, but then you need to come back, you need to re-engage. And so that would allow that period of re-engagement. And if re-engagement doesn't occur, then rather than sort of de facto extending the leave of absence beyond what we've contemplated in our bylaws, we would have something that says you get 3 months, but then you have to come back or you need to resign or be removed, as the case may be. So that would be my, I guess, friendly amendment to the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Staff, I saw your hand.
It was an errant click, but if there's a question, happy to answer it later.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Monica.
I'd like to support Commissioner McDowell's proposal. I think that's a really reasonable proposal. I also think that I know things happen in our lives and sometimes we do have to take a leave of absence, but when those things happen, sometimes we have to think about the responsibilities that we've had to give up in that time and be okay with saying, I can't do this right now, right? So, and that's okay. You know, we're all volunteers and we're putting in a lot of time and hours, so I don't want to take away from the humanity of things happening in our lives, but at the same time, there's a lot of work to do, you know?
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Commissioner Sophia.
Okay. First of all, I don't know the attendance of people, and I don't know if that's something that we should be specifying individuals what's happened that has been within our bylaws so far. So I don't think we need to go back to that point. But I would also like to say that even if people are participating, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're contributing. If they're making meetings, they're not on leave of absence. It doesn't mean that they're actually going to contribute anything. So far, the things that's been disruptive to the success of the commission has been the people who actually are participating. It has to do with the people who are already participating, not the ones that are not. Those are the things that I've seen so far that's delaying work. So my question is, or my idea is, how does that help if we have people who are already on the commission participating in meetings, but not contributing, versus someone who may be on leave for whatever reason and contributes a lot prior to and after they return? So it's just a thought, and thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Lovisa.
Okay, so I just want to remind everybody of the community agreements, and in particular, the part where we say that we will be gracious, essentially, and that all of our coworkers here have the right to be free from unfair or disparaging characterization. So I think that that's a really important point to bring up here. I do want to go back quickly to the is this necessary to complete the work of the commission or to do the work, conduct the work of the commission question, and say that I've noticed or that I've noted, having been at the majority of the meetings and having been on a subcommittee also each phase so far, quorum has not been a huge concern. There have been a few times where we've been a little concerned about making quorum, but we've only, as far as I can remember, we've only had to miss or cancel one meeting because of not hitting quorum. So I wouldn't say quorum is really my huge concern here. I would say my concern in terms of conducting the work of the commission is more regarding participation, contribution, and just, many hands making light work, basically, that like we have a lot of work, there's a lot of work to do, and having more people around to do it is more fair to the folks who are showing up and actively participating. So I will say that my opinion is that maybe making some change of some kind. I do feel like this change, and I think Commissioner Handelman is right that they're kind of entwined. So I can see the argument for this being necessary for conducting the work of the commission.
Commissioner Connie, and then staff.
One thing I think is important to sort of acknowledge at this point is that the work of this commission is going to be very different of the work of the commission going forward. The work of this commission is very much like foundational. It's like writing bylaws and things that like potentially people weren't entirely clear that that was going to be the work when they applied or signed up for it. I think we can all admit that it's been a little bit more time consuming than we all had maybe initially assumed or thought. And I don't think anyone knew because it had never existed. So there is no way to communicate like, hey, when you apply for this, be prepared for 2 to sometimes 3 meetings a week. The work going forward is going to largely be, from what I understand, reviewing cases and circumstances potentially. So that work is much different than like the actual foundational building work that we're doing. So it might make sense for us to consider amending this for that work and not the work that we're currently doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Connie. Staff.
Yeah, I wanted to draw attention to one thing, and this is only in the context of retroactive. Well, actually, it's not. It might apply going forward. If any member of the commission misses a meeting and does not give prior notice, they're marked as absent without notice, which contributes under the clock or the counter, I should say, that Commissioner Co-Chair Lavisa had brought up under part 1 here. But there's another part that also was mentioned, which is that in the event of an unforeseen circumstance, co-chairs and staff may choose not to count a specific absence as without notice. And that often has the impact of, and this is not saying it as a negative, it takes time to determine that. It takes time to ask the member who may have missed something, can you provide some sort of information as to what the unforeseen circumstance might be. And then for co-chairs who are busy people who do a lot for the commission to get to that discussion. And sometimes it requires follow-up. And without naming names, there are I guess several would be the best term I can think of to describe the number of members of the commission that have been reached out to for this. It's not just the people that have been alluded to today, but there are several others who are still here, many of them, and who have said, oh, that was an unforeseen circumstance. This is what happened. And co-chairs and staff discussed if they should count it. And so that might have the appearance from the outside of being a delay in implementing the first part of this. And I just want to acknowledge that. But every the first part here is something that does get implemented. It just doesn't always happen immediately because of the need to ask and give people time to respond and communicate if there was an unforeseen circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, staff. Commissioner Lavisa.
Sure, I just wanted to say briefly, one, the item Commissioner Handelman brought up, someone who has not been here for a long time. Co-chairs are certainly aware of this, taking steps. Something that's that I will say, we don't have a specific timeline written into the bylaws about what happens when somebody hits that, like, 3 unexcused absences without like prior notice and without submitting an excuse of some kind afterward. And so that is another item that I mean I've definitely considered, like, perhaps that's something that we should consider amending, is saying, hey, after you have an unexcused absence, you have 2 weeks to email or call staff or something along those lines, because yeah, right now there's no timeline. We just try to do what seems reasonable, and like also keeping in mind we want to keep it humane. We want to keep people coming back. It takes a lot of political capital and will to get somebody through the process of adding somebody new. And also now we are deep enough into this work that we do have some institutional knowledge and some relationships here. So I think that there is a value that grows over time of keeping people who have been here. So just wanted to mention those items.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa. Commissioner Sophia.
I just would like to make a clarifying statement, because I don't want folks to think that I'm disparaging others, but And my comment, my suggestion was the issues that we currently have are not being caused by the folks who are not participating. So I will rephrase that if it was offensive to anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Dan.
Well, so I want to revisit where we are. And I'm the one that proposed the language. I'm perfectly open to saying 4 months instead of 3 months, as long as we also have a retroactive clause in there. And, I'm not willing to wait another 3 or 4 months to see whether our errant member has decided to come back or not. I would think we should get somebody in who's going to come to meetings and going to participate and help us with the next phase as we're, starting to hammer out the details of what the new board's going to look like. And I want to bear in mind, we have several new members who are here tonight, some of them who weren't there for some of this, some of the foundational stuff and for some of the presentations from the experts, but I think that, they've been able to catch up, and we're probably going to unfortunately lose other members and have to fill those seats at some point also. So I don't think it's that huge a deal to find a new person to fill the seat that's currently not really being active. And my last comment, while I have the floor, is that I believe we started at least 3 meetings late, like close to 15 minutes late, because we were waiting for quorum, and it's usually just we were shy by 1. So I think that having an extra person who's going to come to meetings will help us get our work done faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. I'm going to step in from as an equity practitioner and say that this is an equity issue. Like you as a commission get to consider this from an equity perspective also, and I'll invite that in and leave that comment there. We are, one second, Commissioner Faith, we are asking the question at hand. Is this necessary to conduct the business of the commission? And that's what we're asking consensus for. I'm going to hold that right there. I'm going to invite Victoria in, and then Commissioner Faith.
Thank you, Dr. Moses. And I was just reflecting on this, and this is very hard work, especially for Black and Brown, that has been traumatized over and over and over and harmed by institutions, policies, police, government, and it has to take in consideration. And I wonder if the staff or you, Dr. Christine Moses, have any kind of data on this, because that will be important to check and review it before making any decision, because it's not, we cannot be equitable. We have to use the lens of equities and the values, and it has to be some kind of information about it. And I'm asking you, Dr. Moses, of data, is there any, I'm sorry, Dr. Moses or staff, any data about this? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm going to hand this over to staff.
I want to be careful in not overstating the level of data, and so perhaps if there's broader data that anyone else has to add to this conversation, but staff does keep attendance for this commission, and as of more recently is part of a unit in the community safety division where there's attendance data on other advisory groups that deal with the same broad issue area of police and policing, though obviously not the exact narrower focus of this commission and police accountability. And in that, the attendance does tend to track with those who, lower attendance does tend to correlate with people who are facing more historic and systemic inequity. We don't have data on everything. We don't have data on things like caregiving responsibilities or anything like that. We do have gender, we do have race and ethnicity. We do have, do you identify as a person who is over-policed or a member of an over-policed community? And in those three, there's very large disparities. I should say that's a subjective statement, but there's statistically significant ones in the level of attendance. And so, in other words, this would be more likely to apply to people who identify as Black or brown, as female, as a member of an open police community, just in the context of if historical attendance patterns of the PAC were to continue. That's not saying that they will continue, not saying that would be guaranteed to happen. Try to be very careful here not to overstate anything. And also the PAC is a small sample size, about 400 total attendances or something like that tracked, because the PAC's met about, I don't know, 40 times, but some of those have been subcommittees. So I don't know if that helps answer the question for you, but if you need more data, I'm happy to be more specific.
Thank you so much, staff. Commissioner Lavisa.
Hi, yes, okay, so equity, I just wanted to talk about the equity issue just really briefly and say that I think equity cuts both ways here to some extent, right? Like, as staff just said, this would most likely have a disparate impact on women, on people of color. And I also have to note that, like, the people who do show up and who are here and who are doing the work, more work is displaced onto those people when fewer people are here and are around. And one huge part, I think, of like trying to keep this work sustainable for the commission is making sure that we have like enough people to do the work and to not burn out everybody who is here or who is in the room. So I guess I want to bring that up. And I also want to say, I think Commissioner Arce had mentioned that she liked Commissioner Catherine's idea of, like, you know, right now we have a leave of absence that is 3 months. And so maybe we should lengthen this like automatic removal to 4 months. And I want to say I generally support that idea. And I think that's a pretty good idea because it doesn't put somebody in a gotcha situation by accident. So just putting that out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa. Commissioner Faith.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation to center equity in this conversation, and I do echo Lavisa's comment of and also acknowledge that we are a majority of folks of color, and I don't know that it's like the most appropriate use of demographic data to count our absences based on our race, because like I'm just thinking of like such a small sample. I'm sorry, I'm a researcher. Like one person with a disability was absent 4 times in a group of 20 just is not like I don't think that this is the kind of data that is particularly meaningful, and it for me feels a little harmful to like my identity. Like, does then that infer that disabled people don't come to meetings? So I just want to I want to acknowledge that. And I also want to appreciate the invitation to consider equity and to understand that is a full spectrum of equity considerations. So appreciate that nuance, Lavisa. And I echo your invitation to consider 4 months. And maybe let's ask if there's strong opposition to including this in the bylaws per Commissioner Dan's recommendation and Catherine's amendment. Is there strong opposition?
1 second. Where the first question is it necessary? That's our first question. Is it necessary? And so is there, is the amendment necessary?
And Dr. Moses,
Yes.
yeah, Commissioner Sophia.
Is there strong opposition to the idea that it is necessary to conduct the business of the commission? Is there consensus to the idea that it's necessary to conduct the business of the commission? I see consensus. Commissioner Sophia. Do you have a question?
I'm sorry, I've been having some delays with my internet.
I'm sorry.
So I missed the first, I've been missing the first part. So can you please, I'm sorry, ask it again?
Sure. The first part was, is there strong opposition to the idea that it is necessary to conduct the business of the commission? That was the first one there, and we did not see any strong opposition. And then the second one, is there consensus to the idea that it is necessary to conduct the business of the commission? And we saw that there was consensus on that. Do you feel caught up?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm caught up. Thank you.
Okay, fabulous. So then I believe if you want to amend this to 4 consecutive months, now we get to ask and see if there's consensus. Is there opposition and consensus with this statement? And I will read the statement. Regardless of whether absences are excused or not, and whether or not a commissioner has announced a leave of absence or not, failure to attend any PAC meetings for over 4 consecutive months will result in an automatic recommendation to City Council for removal and replacement of a PAC member. Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that maybe some language to say that if it's going to be 4 months or more, that the commissioner consider resigning rather than being, say, put out. I don't, I think people know when they can't do things, and they'll say it up front. So I just thought that would be some language that might be helpful.
There is a resignation process that's being highlighted. And it says that members are expected to make a good faith effort to complete their term. In cases where this is not possible, members are expected to provide notice of their resignation in writing to staff and co-chairs. Is that's a good, okay, very good, Commissioner Sophia. I see your thumbs up on that. Commissioner Lavisa.
I know the suggestion had been made to make this retroactive, and I wanted to ask, I don't know if this is okay. Staff, staff, can you tell us what implications, if any, if you're able to anonymize them in any way, this would have if this were retroactive?
I don't think I'd be able to anonymize that, but I think that might answer the question anyway. So I do think it's worth considering if retroactivity is designed to address a individual member, and if that jives with the community agreements of the commission. I would posit that it does not, but in terms of the legal question, I don't have an answer for it. Unfortunately, our advice attorney cannot make it today. So I would need to check in there from a legal perspective, but I don't have an answer.
Commissioner Danny.
My mistake, thank you.
Yeah, it says that she is in the chat, or that she is here. I do not, oh, I do see her. Yes, would you like us to promote her into this room? I see that City Attorney Sarah Ames, Deputy City Attorney Sarah Ames has been promoted into the room. You're free to speak to this question.
The PAC is has the authority to make its own bylaws, including its recommendations to the council for removal. The council then would be deciding whether or not that is appropriate grounds for removal. I mean, because the council is the only one who can remove. I think that it might be, you know, appropriate given your community agreements to give this person an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to continue or resign, as you say. But I don't see any legal impediment at this point to moving forward to change the bylaws as you suggest.
Thank you so much, Attorney Ames. Commissioner Faith and then Commissioner Lavisa.
I appreciate the invitation to make it retroactive. I don't think that it's applicable. And so, I mean, I can't disclose any other information, but I just don't think that it's applicable here and that the matter will resolve itself. So my invitation would be to not add that into this language, that it be retroactive, that we just consider it moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Faith. Commissioner Lavisa.
Thanks, Faith. I agree with Faith, and also I wanted to note in terms of offering the person the chance to resign, I don't think we need to write any language about that because I think that we already have language about that in the bylaws. In particular, when you take a leave of absence, you are requested or required, I can't quite remember what, to call staff or interact with staff and kind of get caught up on what you missed while you were out. And that's also a time when staff checks in with you about how you're doing. And it's an opportunity, if things are not going well and you might not be able to make it back, that's an opportunity for you to begin the conversation about whether it might be appropriate for you to tender your resignation. So I think that we already have language like that, but I agree, I don't think it should be retroactive. And I don't think that's necessary.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Catherine.
Thank you. I guess I generally, my experience on retroactivity is that you know, I think the presumption is changes apply going forward, and it is more extraordinary to apply new standards in a backward-looking manner, and that's partly because it doesn't feel fair. So I think given our community agreements around equity and fairness and just trying to support people in their lives where they are, I guess I agree that we should make the change and make it on a prospective basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Any other comments? All right, then we will go back to the language. And I will ask, is there any strong objection to approving this change to the bylaws? I do not see any objection. Is there consensus to this change to the bylaws? I see consensus. Thank you so much. We will now go we will now go to the are we going to the values and goals document next?
No, that would need to, that's only for substantive decisions and also would be before the final vote.
Right.
So we would have done it prior to asking those last two questions.
Okay. Okay.
We can go to the next agenda item, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Which the next agenda item then is our garden plot, I believe. Oh, review, PAC bylaws, internal processes, community engagement framework. There was no change there.
There is a proposed change to the, sorry to interrupt, to the PAC internal processes.
Yes, can we go to that? Thank you. So, Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know we were asked to submit our suggestions ahead of time. I also know that we haven't revisited the bylaws for many months, I think over 6 months. And Commissioner Lloyd had expressed an interest in making a firm or some kind of a deadline for when the person has to, come up with an excuse for an absence. And I didn't know if she wanted to re-entertain that question or not.
Commissioner Lavisa.
Well, thanks, Commissioner Handelman. Maybe, I think that we will have one more PAC meeting or one more full PAC meeting this planning phase. So maybe it might make sense for me to draft some language, maybe talk to staff since they are the ones who handle most of these I'm going to be out, et cetera, requests, and just see maybe what makes sense, and then bring it to the next full PAC meeting. But thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa. So we have the internal processes document that is in front of us and would like the commissioners to frame the conversation here.
Yep.
Commissioner Faith?
Thank you. Yes, we have. Can we scroll down to any recommended edits? Commissioner Dan, thank you for the comment. Would you like to speak to this recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy to have somebody else read it into the record and I can speak to it.
Sure. Okay, so we are in section 2, guidance on community engagement and public speaking. The question is, are you speaking on the commission's behalf? Commissioner Dan's suggested text reads, this does not include communications disseminating information already publicly available or communications simply informing groups of upcoming meetings or directing them to the commission's website. And his comment says that this language is from the bylaws.
Yeah, so I feel like having to flip back and forth between two documents to figure out these kinds of lack of restrictions or these kind of clarifications is cumbersome, and it'd be just good to have that language in here for new people or for people from the outside trying to understand our process, especially if they hear one of us in a public meeting and wonder whether what we said was speaking on behalf of the commission or not.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Are there any comments on this addition?
Are you waiting for me? Okay, yes, maybe you are. Is there any strong opposition to the addition of this language? No. Is there a consensus to include this language in this section?
I'm gonna call out people, make sure. Commissioner Sophia, where are you in this? Commissioner Obi, Commissioner Jason, Commissioner May. Thank you. I see consensus. We also need general public comment. So I am so glad.
Dr. Moses.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Commissioner Dan.
Yes, well, so I uploaded into the chat my full set of recommendations for this document, and there were 2 comments that were not included in the one that went to the whole commission. I'm not sure the reason for that, but I wanted to have people look at those comments as well. So I have uploaded it so that it can be shared.
Thank you. I think we moved too fast, Dan. It was not intentionally overlooked. So I'm happy to address that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Dan, there was an additional comment towards the bottom.
I apologize. Yes.
No, you're good. I think your comment was on. I'm sorry. I don't see it, and I'm now opening the Word document that you sent. Lovisa. I think that this is you, girl.
Okay, sure. I know, sorry, Dan, I know you mentioned that there were 2 other comments that were not included because they were not textual changes. They were comments. One of the comments related to a suggestion about staff email and how staff signs their email. And I think the suggestion was to change the email signature line. And the commission does not have any authority to regulate staff email. That's sort of where the co-chairs came down on that particular comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Lavisa. Staff.
The other comment was a question, and it related to item 8, number 8 in the process. I'm not, as Co-Chair Lavisa said, it's a question about textual changes versus comments. So if there's a question that any commissioner has on it, would definitely be something worth asking, but maybe verbally into the record. Commissioner Dan would like to do that.
Commissioner Dan.
Okay, let me address that first. So the question is on number 8. These communications will be included in the public record and should be copied to the Police Accountability Commission co-chairs. I asked which communications. Any communications between the public, excluding the ones that we just voted on. That is to say, excluding ones that are just about the agendas or things like that. For all communications need to be copied. It seems to me that it's not necessary to copy the ones that are mere relaying of information that's public information. So I just want to make sure that that's clear in this sentence. But I also want to say that my understanding of the community agreements is that it applies to us and to staff. And I'm a little confused why, when we made a decision about that item number 9, and stuff was said into the record about what, you know, it was asked, what did I mean? And then it was stated that it should say staff, police accountability commission, and the accountability commission. I said yes, and then we came to a consensus on that has not happened. That kind of signature has not happened since May when we voted on that. So that's my comment about that. Oops, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Other comments? Commissioner Lavisa.
Sure. I just want to say, I hear you, Dan. I think that, so right now the email signature does say that the email is managed by staff. So there is already a pretty clear mention of staff in the email signature. I think it was more a question of like, where does the word staff appear? And in terms of changing that, we got an email from Mike Myers that just is like a flat no in terms of the commission making these types of recommendations or changes about staff email. So I think we've heard it from at least that level, that it's a no.
Commissioner Dan. We can't hear you.
It seems to me that sharing that email with the full commission would have been helpful for me, so that I didn't make, you know, spend your time on this right now. I had no idea that was done. I find it, again, troubling. The purpose of this was to make it so that when something came from the full commission, like our quarterly reports, or very soon these documents that we're about to fully adopt, that it's clear what comes from the commission, what comes from staff, what comes from the co-chairs. That was the purpose of this. And if we're not allowed to recommend that, I don't really understand how much authority we have as commissioners to control our own communications with the public. So I'm very troubled by that news, but thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. I'm going to call on Sarah Ames, Deputy City Attorney. Would love to hear your voice around this. Staff, can you let Attorney Ames speak? Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to make clear that this may seem a very small point, particularly as Lavisa mentioned that the email signature has a line underneath saying that it is, you know, this email account is managed by staff, or I don't have it in front of me. So, but the principle is that the staff is an employee of the city and managed by Mike Myers. And there is a line between your management of the commission's affairs and your direction of that in fulfillment of your mission and your management of staff. And so I think that is what Mike Myers was responding to, saying that this is beyond your authority to manage the very small level details of staff. And again, it's already there. And so it might seem a small point for him to, you know, go to the extent of writing a note. But I think that was the principle behind it, and one that the city feels strongly in all of our staff of all of our advisory boards and commissions. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Ames. Commissioner Faith.
Two things, because I want to move us forward. Thank you all for providing context to this. Dan, I hear your concern. There are times when co-chairs get lots of get emails and don't forward them to the full commission. So I want to assure you that when we do that, it is with the best intent. It is not to be deceptive. So I would in return ask that you would offer that trust, that the exclusion of sending that email to everyone was not to deceive anyone, but to really just respect that decision. So appreciate that you can raise concerns and wanted to address that. And then I want to make a suggestion on recommended text for your clarifying question at the bottom of the document. We could, I'm sure that you are already pulling it up, staff. Thank you so much. I think your question, yeah, these communications are not clear. So my recommendation is communications as defined above will be included in the public record. So I'll read that whole statement. Communications as defined above will be included in the public record and should be copied to the Police Accountability Commission co-chairs. Can I ask if there's any strong opposition to this language addition, clarifying? I don't see any hands. Is there consensus to make this change?
Thank you very much. I'm seeing thumbs up and consensus. Yes. Beautiful. So now we can move to public comment on the entire meeting. This is general public comment. General public comment can be public comment on any topic, and you have 2 minutes. So please, if anyone from the community would like to participate, please raise your hand. Phil has raised his hand. Thank you, Phil.
Just a short comment regarding the commission's ability to control or to direct staff members. It might, you know, in this circumstance, it's not a huge issue, I don't think, but the future board, it might make sense to put something into the documents for the board rules to be able to hire and direct their own staff so that you don't have conflicts with some other city department trying to direct what the board staff can and cannot do.
Thank you so
That's
much.
all.
Thank you, Phil. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I would like to move on to the garden plot recap. I would like to invite the commissioners, the co-chairs. Are there any garden plot that we need, issues that we need to recap?
Only item I have is potentially writing some language around notice, lack of prior notice for the bylaws.
Thank you.
And that's for me.
Very good. Victoria, are there any garden plot recaps for today?
I don't have anything for the garden plot.
Thank you so much. Then I would like for us to adjourn this meeting. So I want to thank all of the members who attended today's meeting. And thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you to the interpreters supporting access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and its subcommittees for all Portlanders. Finally, thank you to our members of the community for attending and contributing your thoughts and questions. Please submit advanced public comment prior to the future meetings. If you're not already signed up for email updates, please also sign up to receive them from the PAC. The next meeting of the full commission is expected to be the final meeting of the fact-finding phase, and it is scheduled for October 17th. It is now 8:52 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.